our very own homemade ketchup.
First time.
First time I've ever did it.
Yeah.
From Everglades cherry tomatoes. Hey everyone, it's Rachel and Macy with the Dusty Goat Homestead, and today we're going to be making homemade ketchup from our cherry tomatoes out of our garden. It's Everglades cherry tomatoes, and we're going to show y'all how to make that. So your ingredients are your cherry tomatoes. You got to make sure that you have them, take the stem off of them, make sure that they're washed really well. And then you're going to do onion, sugar, salt, and vinegar. It's a very basic recipe. This is the first time we've done it this way, so we're going to see how it turns out. Alright, so what we're going to do is all the ingredients go into the pot at the same time. So you take your washed and stemmed tomatoes, your sugar, salt, and vinegar. I have about 5.75 pounds of cherry tomatoes here, so I downsized the recipe that I found online for a little bit less than what they had because they had a little over 7 pounds. So I'm doing 5.75 pounds of cherry tomatoes. I'm doing 2.5 cups of vinegar, 2.5 tablespoons of salt, and 13 ounces of sugar. So a little over 1.5 cups of sugar. Alright, so basically what you do is you take and you put everything in the pot at the same time. And you let this simmer for about 2 hours. You gotta watch it, keep it stirred, but on a low simmer for 2 hours. So next you add in your onions. And you want to chop your onions up to where they're really fine on your onions. Next you add in your 13 ounces of sugar. This is what I calculated for how many pounds of tomatoes that we had. So over here. 2.5 tablespoons of salt. Can you hand me the vinegar and the bottle? And 2.5 cups of vinegar. So once you get your ingredients in there, you're just going to take this and stir it around a little bit. Get everything mixed up. And your tomatoes obviously will cook down and create its own liquid. So you just keep it stirred for about I would say every 15 to 20 minutes during the 2 hours while it's cooking down. And just make sure that your tomatoes and stuff like that don't stick to the bottom of your pot. Keep a watch on your temperature. And we'll check back with y'all in 2 hours and show you what it looks like once it's cooked down. So this is how it looks after it's been cooking down for an hour. So we've got about an hour left for it to cook down. And then we're going to strain it. So we're just letting it simmer for about 2 hours. And then once it cooks down a little bit more, I'll be taking it out and straining it. And then we'll show you that process. Alright, so it's been cooking or simmering for 2 hours. So your next step is to take it and you strain it. So you're going to strain out all of the pulp and the seeds. And just put the juices in your bowl. So what should be going into your bowl is just your sauce. So all of your pulp and everything will be caught in your strainer. And you just dip spoonfuls out, mash it, and get all your juice out. And see, there's our ketchup starting in the bottom of our bowl. And I'm just doing it a little bit at a time because I've never done this, so I want to make sure that I'm doing it right. So you take your, see, there's your pulp and your seeds from your tomatoes. So we don't really know how much this is gonna make once it's done. Like I said, we use cherry tomatoes, so you know, it takes a lot of cherry tomatoes for sauce, but we'll see what we end up with. This is what we have after we've strained it. So it doesn't make a lot, but we are using cherry tomatoes. So now what we're going to do is we're going to pour this into this pot. And this is going to simmer until it's at the consistency you want for thickness. So it just depends on how thick you want it, is how long you cook it. So see, it's still real soupy. But as you cook it, it'll cook down and it'll thicken up. And then we'll put it into our jars for storage. It ended up a little darker than I thought it was going to be for ketchup. But it actually tastes really good. It has a good flavor. It just needs to thicken up. Alright, so here it is. Homemade ketchup from Everglades Tomatoes. It is really, really good. We're about to pour it into our sterilized jars. And you don't have to water bath them or can them unless you've got a lot, then you might want to. This is probably only going to make 1 jar worth, maybe a jar and a half, which will get used fairly quick in our household. So I sterilized the jars and they're just going to go into the refrigerator. But there's your end product.
All right, pour it up.
Now this will thicken up a little bit as it sits and become more consistency to ketchup. But it's pretty thick now. So in all, it took about 3.5 hours for this to cook down, thicken up, removing the pulp and whatnot, but there you go, our very own homemade ketchup.
First time.
First time I've ever did it.
Yeah.
From Everglades cherry tomatoes. All right, everybody have a great night from
Bye.
the Best to Go Homestead. Bye guys, have a great night.